I wasn't fully committed to popping it open because I guess it was still stuck at some of the plastic sections, because this is actually really thick plastic. It was really hard to cut through. And what ended up happening was I wasn't paying attention, and my hand slipped and I ripped it open. And I don't even, oh, right up here. Like, there's supposed to be a connector right there. You're not gonna be able to see it very well because it's very fine, but like there's just pieces of PCB falling out. Like, the connector's gone. It's broken. It's dead. There's no way Starlink would ever give me my money back.
Now, you do sometimes live stream. I mean, obviously the Cannonball Run, there's some others, but I mean, mostly you're doing, edited YouTube videos. Is that right?
Yeah. I'd like to think that I have a multi-pronged approach to how we approach content creation in general. A lot of it's based on the business decisions, right? Like, what is the most profitable thing that we can do for our business? Because it's not just me as a YouTuber. I have 5 employees. I also have a wife. I have 3 kids. I have to take care of everybody. So it's usually balanced between what do I want to do, what does the audience want to see, and what is actually going to net us enough profit that we can continue to exist and move forward. So live streaming, I really like it from a community development side of things. On the profitability side of things, we haven't really gotten it to the point where it makes sense financially for us to prioritize live streams for our business, but it definitely, I always, if I end up taking a break from live streaming for any significant length of time, I always get that itch where it's like, I haven't talked to my community lately. I haven't been interacting with anybody. I really, really miss hanging out with the people in my community, so I need to live stream again. And so I always end up coming back to it, but I've been live streaming on and off since 2017. So I think early 2017 is when I first appeared on Twitch, doing some game streams. Back then, there was a lot of like crypto content that I was doing surrounding like the PC side of how you mine cryptocurrency. I never really got into the like buying, trading, and selling things. I always tried to stay really far away from that. It was like,
that's good.
How can your graphics card help you make some passive income? And that way, I always felt back then, like, as long as I focused on the hardware, even if things go belly up, I only gave people information on stuff they could still sell afterwards. Like, you can always sell a graphics card even when you're done mining.
Play a game on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could game on it, you could sell it, you still have an asset at the end of the day. And so there's just been a variety of content that I've done on live streaming over the few years. And I love it for the fact that like you really can get to know people. I would say that I've made friends across the world live streaming from my audience, specifically because they tune into our live streams. Or like when COVID happens, me and my team decided, you know what, let's just go live every day at noon. We'll talk about the latest tech news. And that really ended up being a really needed place for us as a team to just have that reliability in the sea of everything that was unknown at the time. And then
it was such chaos, such stress, right?
Like, I remember getting off of work, going home and turning on the presidential address, being like, what's going on? I have no idea what's happening. Like, I just need some stability. And it turns out our audience needed that as well. And so a lot of people ended up flocking to us during that time and have stayed since then, because like we kind of got through the few early months of the pandemic together, which was cool.
So the giveaways, are those from sponsors?
It depends. So like with the Cannonball that just happened, we had about $20,000 in prizes that we gave away. About $7,500 was provided by companies, and the other amount was stuff that I've accumulated over the course of doing business in the last year. So it can be varied. Like, we just gave away a graphics card last week. That came out of my own personal inventory. Right now, we're giving away this PC right here with a full setup that's worth about $2,500, but that's being sponsored by NZXT. So it's like, there's multiple ways we do it. I always want to make sure that when I'm streaming, I'm giving people a reason to watch and that they're getting value out of it, and that it's not just me. Like, I don't think I'm important and I have anything so grand enough to say that people have to come watch me. And so I'm always looking at like, why would people even care to come watch this? I have to give them a reason.
I mean, Oprah gave away stuff too, right?
I'm
I
not
don't
a big
I don't think
conversation.
anyone's big enough to escape that. Really.
Yeah.
So your streams are kind of interactive, right? I mean, what do you do to? So what are some things you do to make them interactive?
I think the primary thing, and the thing that bugs me a lot when I watch other channels, and this is just like my personal peeve. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong. Do whatever works for you and your community. But I just personally cannot watch a Twitch stream where the streamer is not actually directly responding to comments. If you're not interacting with the people who are there to watch you live, just make it a video. It doesn't have to be live if you're not engaging them. And I don't always follow that rule. Like, I'm a hypocrite 100% sometimes, where it's like I'm knee deep in like a PC build and I got to focus on doing this one thing correctly, and I'm ignoring chat for 30 minutes. But for the most part, I want people to feel like there's a place for them to be where their voice is going to get heard. I'm going to interact with them. They can ask questions. They get to interact with me personally. We get to develop that parasocial relationship a little bit. It's a lot of fun. I like the people aspect of live streaming, and that's where I think live streaming benefits the most. The whole fact that it's live and people can interact with it, because like live TV exists, but there's no interactability. It removes an aspect of that equation that I value so much, and why I love live streaming.
Let's talk about all the technology used on the Cannonball Run. Maybe starting instead of with us. Why the Tesla?
So the Tesla was because with our son's rare disease, the idea, or even the conversation that we can have that we might be trying to cure a genetic disorder, is a brand new one. That's a brand new thing that has not existed at any other point in history. And so it's this like new wave of technology that's coming in the medical sector, where we're saying, hey, we can actually alter people's genetic code to get them to the point where they no longer have specific issues. And just so anybody, I can clarify in the stream, my son's rare genetic disorder is called SYNGAP1. It's a single gene mutation where it causes intellectual disability, physical disability. The worst part of it is seizures. He has nearly 100 seizures per day. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's a single cause, and we have been able to identify what that is. But we also live in an incredible time in technology, medical advancements, and everything like that, where you can look at it and you can say, hey, there's actual hope here. We don't have to treat the symptoms for the rest of his life. He's on 17 different medications every single day to help treat the symptoms. But that's like, for us as parents, it's just not good enough. Like, we want him cured at the genetic level so that we can provide him the best life possible. And so when we look at, what are other things that are moving that needle forward, electric vehicles are kind of the next wave in automobiles. A cannonball in an electric vehicle is not a very common thing. The Cannonball Run, for anybody who's not familiar, is a non-sanctioned but official race from New York City to LA in the fastest time possible. And I think the world record is somewhere just north of 24 hours. They actually ended up pulling it off during the beginning of COVID because nobody was
Which is well over 100 miles an hour average.
So that includes stopping and all of that. Yeah, they're breaking the law. They're doing crazy stuff. It's not sanctioned by anybody because of just how illegal it is. But for us, we wanted to live stream it. And so that involves not doing so much illegal speeding, but rather trying to make it a fun event for everybody. So that, curing our son's genetic disorder, focusing on what technology is driving that forward. The Tesla has the best charging network in the entire United States. Like, if you go on electric vehicle Twitter, you'll see everybody's complaining about any other charging network. Electrify America, ChargePoint, they all have issues. Tesla actually built out their infrastructure. So the ability to get it done in a Tesla is a known entity that I wanted for, if we were going to do it in an electric vehicle, doing it in a Tesla provides the most stability, where it's like, I'm not going to arrive to a charger and then wonder if it's working or not. So that's the main reason for the Tesla. Yeah, it's also fun to drive, and it also has autopilot, so you don't have to quite be constantly adjusting your speed or your hands on the wheel. It's kind of taking care of the small details for you, which makes live streaming a little bit easier.
All right, so what was the streaming setup? So you
Yeah.
had a Starlink on the roof.
Yes. That's so the fundamentals of what we needed to do to pull off a cross-country live stream. We did our first one in 2021, and it took me about 3 to 4 months to make sure everything that I needed, number one, either actually existed, or number two, I could afford it. So having a computer that can handle multi-camera inputs, that was a non-negotiable for me. I wanted cameras inside the car showing the road, and a camera when we got out of the car. So I wanted it to not just be tied to one location. So that's pretty easy to solve. Blackmagic makes the A10 Mini. You can put 4 HDMI cameras into that, and you can switch between them. That was a pretty easy one. We have a wireless HDMI transmitter that allows us to take the camera outside of the car. That was solved pretty quickly. The next part becomes the streaming aspect. So having a laptop to take in all of that information was not too hard to find, but because we're powering it off of the, cigarette lighters in the car, it has to be low powered. It had to have Ethernet ports, and that was a little difficult, but we ended up finding like a $500 or $600 laptop that we could run everything off of, and it could still encode the stream the entire time. Then the most arduous part, and the part that we did not have figured out the first year, was the internet side of things. So back in 2021, Starlink did not have the option that you could use it while moving. Like, we got so many comments where people were like, why aren't you using Starlink? And it's because SpaceX doesn't allow you to use it while you're in motion. They shut down the service. So our options were pretty much just mobile carriers. So we had all of the 3 major mobile carriers here in the US on some sort of router. So that's T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon. And we had it all bonded through Speedify through 2021. You guys weren't sponsoring us yet. But I was like, I can get multiple internet connections, but I need to put them all together. And the way you, at least how I knew before I found Speedify, the way you do that is hardware bonding. You get like an actual router that sends it off to some like server somewhere, and they bond it for you, but you have to have like their dedicated piece of hardware. And I was like, there has to be a way to do this with software. Like the first time I heard about hardware internet bonding was like over a decade ago. We have to have come so far where we could do it with software. And sure enough, I do the research, and it's kind of like Speedify's the only option. Like I
as
think
far as I know.
yeah, there might have been like a couple of other competitors who do like half of what you guys do, but you guys have all of the options where it's not only you can fuse the internet together, but then there is that focus on live streaming where you either have speed mode, you have redundancy mode. You can actually take care of, okay, sometimes while I'm driving, one mobile network's going to be going really fast and the others are going to be going slow. So I just need that one to go through. But sometimes all 3 of the carriers are going to be having terrible service, and so I need them all put together. And you guys solve that. So like, it was just a perfect marriage of your software with our hardware solution. But the hardware ended up, especially on 2021, not really working out very well. It turns out that the United States doesn't have full cellular coverage across every single state. Namely, the worst state in the entire nation is Arizona. That was the worst one we drove through. I didn't go through the northern states like Montana, Wyoming, so I can't comment on that. But as far as the Cannonball route, Arizona is a no man's land. Like, cellular coverage was gone for hours on the 2021 stream. So when 2022 came around, I was like, I have to get Starlink. Like, there's no way I can't do this. It just makes so much sense. And by that point, people were posting videos of them disassembling their dishes, putting them on the RVs, and showing how you can actually get it running while you're driving. So I ended up buying a Starlink. You have to do a mount conversion because they're like weirdly shaped. They don't fit on the top of a car very well. And you don't want it in the car because then you're blocking the signal from the satellite. So I had to physically convert it so that it can mount on the car with like suction cups and make sure it wasn't going to go anywhere. And I ended up botching that conversion and ripping traces out of the PCB and completely destroying it. So that was a $700 item that I just completely destroyed. It's out of warranty at the moment I dremeled into it. Yeah, this was a whole like build up into the Cannonball. We're 2 months before it in, I think this is probably August of 2022. I'm trying to get the Starlink ready, and I end up destroying one. And so I have to find, I order a second one. It comes in. I actually still have the first broken one right over there. But we get a second one. I do the conversion properly where I can actually mount it onto the car, and we get that done. And then I feed it into the computer the same way that I fed everything else the previous year. So we still had AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile as the backups. But what we ended up finding across the Cannonball, and thanks to Speedify giving us all of the data that we need to track all of this, that Starlink, by and large, was transmitting the most amount of data across the country. But that also, I skipped over the part where, like, a week before the Cannonball, SpaceX announced that they're shutting down the ability to use the Starlink while it's moving because they're going to be releasing a mobile version. And they actually ended up they did shut it down, just only for specific Starlink dishes. And thankfully, ours was not included in that specific list. So we were able to use it. But then, like a week after the Cannonball, Starlink comes out and says, hey, we have our new mount that you can put on the top of your RP. It's $2,500 for you to buy it, and then you can stick it on, and we fully approve it. And that's just because of, like, FCC regulations. It's not approved for in motion use, and so they had to develop a specific dish in order to do that. And technically, everybody who was driving with it was, like, violating FCC law, but that's on Starlink, not on us. So it was a whole thing. Oh,
Nice. So Cam's Cream Cheese is saying that if I remember, Speedify was found and tested about a week or two before the actual Cannonball. Prior to that, switching between providers was rough.
yes. Yeah. So before the 2021 Cannonball, I was still trying to find hardware solutions to do it. It was like a last minute thing that I found Speedify, and you guys saved the bacon on that stream, because it was not going to go well otherwise. Where I was, like, manually switching at one point, and then I had, like, there were just multiple solutions that didn't end up working out, and none of them were good. At one point I was like, I'm just gonna have to go with whatever's the best carrier and just stay on them. Like, if it's AT&T, we just stay on AT&T the entire time, and we'd have dead zones. But thankfully, we found Speedify. The first Cannonball, our uptime, where our stream was constantly transmitting, was about 75%. So there was about a quarter of the stream that was dropped due to bad service. On the 2022 Cannonball, adding Starlink in, I didn't grab the official data, but I think on the glance I looked at, it was closer to 98 to 99%. So a huge improvement adding Starlink
Nice.
in. And the only thing I didn't mention in that is that we had a cloud server. So there's services that rent out server space for OBS where you can stream to them, and if you drop your connection to them, they still output to Twitch, they still output to everywhere you're trying to stream, and so you don't lose the stream the entire time. So we had that going in the background so that we were just communicating with the cloud server, and the cloud server was feeding out that to Twitch, and we were also on YouTube. So multiple points of redundancy across the internet, as well as, like, the cloud server, to make sure that no matter what, there was always something on the screen for the people who were tuning in.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when we post more tech talks, interviews, and tutorials.